Hello everyone. Thanks for stopping by my channel, The Mystic Next Door. And thank you to all of my subscribers, old and new, and for the wonderful comments that you've left, because I read them all. If you're brand new, I want to tell you a little bit about myself and the channel. I am an intuitive, a medium, and an energy healer, among other things. On this channel, I like to share messages from Spirit, often about health and healing, and other times about personal experiences and observations that I believe Spirit wants me to share with you, because I think they're healing as well. And I alternate these with healing meditations that I hope are helpful. If you enjoy what you find here, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. So today, I want to share with you a bit more about seeing the signs. If you haven't seen my recent video about my angel shoes, I encourage you to take a look. But in this case, I want to talk about seeing the signs that our past loved ones are still with us. I want to start with some of the signs that I received after my father passed in August of 2020. He'd been in poor health for a while, so his passing wasn't a surprise. But due to COVID, I wasn't able to travel to the East Coast, where I'm from, to be with him at the end. So a few months after Dad's passing, I was sitting at the dining room table and I heard a tapping at my window opposite me. I looked up to see a little bird, like a finch or something, fluttering outside the window, and it was pecking at the glass as if it were trying to get in my window. I just remembered that it was very peculiar behavior for a bird. My mind went for a quick second to my dad as if he might be trying to say goodbye, but I dismissed it. Through the next couple of years, I continued to see birds randomly behaving strangely outside of my house, swooping and diving low to the ground or dancing around or making a spectacle of themselves. And each time I'd take notice and say, that's weird. And I always kind of thought of my father, but not really willing to believe that he would go to the effort to send birds from the great beyond for my notice. So before I go on, it's important to note that my dad and I had a very strained relationship when I was growing up. He was extremely critical of me all the time throughout my childhood, and that criticism continued right into my young adulthood. It's worth noting here, too, that my mom was and still is very loving and very supportive and served as a strong counterbalance for my dad's behavior. So I was able to recognize that his stuff was not mine, and I'm okay. No daddy issues here. Even so, for my own self-preservation, I moved out of the house as soon as I graduated from high school at the age of 17. Later that summer, I started college, and I met my now husband and moved on, literally. In fact, we moved halfway across the country. Dad and I eventually made our peace, and I harbored no ill will. I just moved on. I assumed our issues were over, so I never dreamed that Dad would try so hard, using birds, to get my attention from the spirit world. So back to seeing the signs. Clearly, we have a small bird theme starting to emerge here, but I suppose I wasn't paying enough attention, so my dad decided to kick it up a notch. In August of this year, 2022, roughly 2 years after his passing, my dad's younger sister, my aunt, called me on the phone. We don't talk very often, so it was unexpected, but nice to chat with her, and she explained that she had been talking to Dad a lot lately in prayer and had asked him to send her a sign. She said that a week had gone by and she hadn't received anything resembling a sign or a message, so she was ready to give up. But the next morning she woke up, looked out the window, and was startled to find that the entire stand of trees behind her house was filled with crows. She said she had never seen anything like it, and she knew that this was the sign from Dad that she was expecting. And by her account, she instantly knew that she needed to call me because he was trying to get an apology to me. When she called that afternoon, there was some racket inside of my house, so I stepped outside onto my back deck to talk to her. It was a very hot day, so I sat near the edge of the deck so that I was in the shade of a tree, and I happened to be sitting at eye level just a few feet from a bird feeder that we had hung there. And as we were chatting, a chubby gray bird flew up and landed on that bird feeder hanging from that tree, and it was only about 4 feet away from me. My aunt and I were having quite an animated conversation. We were laughing and carrying on, and yet that gray bird just stayed there on the feeder right next to me for nearly the entire phone call. Now, I hadn't seen a bird land on that feeder for quite some time, and in fact, I was getting ready to take it down. It was so neglected by the birds that it still had most of the bird seed in it from a year before. Plus, I thought, how unusual is it for a bird to stay for even a minute or two, let alone 20 or 30 minutes? Would you believe that chubby little bird just sat there pecking at the seed, listening to our entire conversation? So I told my aunt, and we both laughed, and we agreed it was Dad. And that was the day that I openly acknowledged to my dad that I was seeing the bird signs that he was sending me. And I told him out loud that I forgave him. In the months that followed, I've had so much unusual bird activity. In one case, I asked Dad to send me a sign while I was out on a walk with my dog. No sign came on the walk, so I went inside and went into the kitchen to start dinner. Just then, I heard a loud metal hammering sound coming from the living room. My husband was sitting right there, and he nearly jumped out of his skin. But I knew that sound right away. It was the sound of a woodpecker pecking on the metal chimney cap. I hear it every year, but only in the springtime, and very early in the morning, because that's when woodpeckers claim their territory and look for a mate. I never hear it in the fall, and never at dusk, but that day I did. It was quite out of place and odd, and that was my sign. And yes, I did go out and check. There was a woodpecker on the top of my chimney. And the last bird sighting I want to share with you was just a few weeks later than that, this fall. I'd stepped out yet again on my back deck, and there on the railing was a white dove. I don't know about you, but I can probably count on one hand the number of times I've seen a white dove in the wild, and this was on my back porch railing. And it's worth noting that in some traditions, a white dove is a sign of peace and love. So I took it that way too. It's been a few months now, but since I heard and accepted my dad's apology, the bird sightings have virtually stopped. So why birds? I really don't know, but I suppose my father has a thing for birds in the spirit realm, and more importantly, he knew that he could catch my attention with them. So there's my story of how my loved one came to me, and more importantly, how I chose to see and acknowledge the signs. Spirits will do just about anything to let us know that they are okay and that they're still with us. In the comments below, I would love it if you would share your stories of how your crossed loved ones have shown that they are still with you. So the last sign I want to share with you is a card that I pulled from my Oracle of Angels deck. And I couldn't believe it because I knew I was going to talk about signs. And it was the Believe card. Isn't that beautiful? We spend so much time rationalizing things that we encounter in life that we forget to just believe. Thank you for coming by today. So if you know someone who may benefit from this story, please share it and believe.